One mistake I see a lot is, and I've been on the other end of this as a reporter, is when somebody calls or sends a press release or an email
Oh no.
and says, "This
I've
is
done
the
that.
greatest story."
If you have been thinking about trying to get more positive media coverage for your district or your school, you are in luck because I'm here with my good friends, Ryan Foran and Amber Nuuvali here in Arcadia Unified School District, and we're going to talk just that. Ryan, Amber, good morning. Thank you so much for being here with me this morning and talking through this with me. I think this is a crucial tactic that schools and districts can really lean into and leverage their local media, even national media, as you've done here in Arcadia. So let's start with you, Ryan. Tell me a little bit about yourself, the viewers out there, and a little bit of your background.
Well, first, Matt, great to be here. Great to have you. This is exciting. Ryan Foran, Chief Communications Officer for the Arcadia Unified School District. Been here in Arcadia about 10 years. Love it. Before this, I was a journalist doing TV news, and that's kind of why I really like media relations. So that's a bit about me. Taught a couple college classes along the years, and we do an internship program, but Chief Communications Officer for Arcadia.
Yeah, that previous journalism experience is really one of the big reasons I wanted to involve you in this conversation. Amber, how did you get here?
Sure. So, Matt, it's great to be here with you as well. I've been with Arcadia Unified for about 6 years now. I'm a public information officer. I have a bit of a varied background, so I thought I wanted to be a lawyer. I have my JD, and then I found the light. So now I'm in school PR, fighting the good fight. I love it here, and it's been amazing to learn from Ryan. As he mentioned, just that broadcast news journalism background has been instrumental in helping Arcadia Unified establish great media relations, as well as teaching me how to establish them. So I'm excited to talk shop with you all.
That is so awesome. Yeah. So instead of being like a really well-paid, high-powered like attorney, you chose public education.
Hey, she chose the right
Servant
profession.
heart.
Okay. All right. Now, it is true. We get so much back, right? Like way more than a paycheck working in public education, which is, I think, why we're all so passionate about it. All right. So I want to dive right into the deep end here. I've even seen some recent stories. I've followed social media for Arcadia Unified for many years now, for a number of years. I'm always amazed at the level of coverage your district gets. I will even say sometimes a little jealous about the level of coverage that your district seems to get. The positive news stories always out there. You're always pumping it on social media. You have a really great webpage dedicated to tracking those stories that are out there. Really awesome. I know there's a couple of recent ones, like all 7 elementary schools were recognized as distinguished schools. I saw that on ABC7, just a little thing. You also had like an annual band festival that was covered as well, which is really amazing to see these news anchors up there talking about the community stories and engaging with their public school district. So what's the secret? Start me from the beginning. What are some tips and tricks to really engage media, strengthen those relationships, but how are you getting the media to pay attention to some of these stories?
Good question. How much time do we have here?
Yeah.
Well,
As much as you need.
Honestly, Matthew, I think one of the most important things, a lot of school districts we saw in the pandemics realized the importance of having a public information officer, having a communications professional, just because of the need of transparency and getting out that important information. The other thing it does outside of the pandemic, having somebody in-house or working with somebody that does this full-time, is that allows you to establish relationships with the media, somebody that's a public relations professional that understands media relations, that understands journalism. So if you have a school, say ABC7 is looking to do a story this weekend, they need something to cover, they're looking for a kicker or whatever it is. If there's 5 districts within their area, and they know District A has a public information officer that they can call their cell phone, they can email them, and that's going to get back to them because they always have, which district are they going to call? District A, because they have somebody to work with directly. Now, if you don't have a public relations professional in your district, they call you, then who are they asking for? Who's going to handle it? Is it the principal? They're doing a million things. So step 1 is having a dedicated media relations, public relations professional. So that helps a ton. then we can also send out press releases, be proactive, and that's really kind of what has helped us a ton outside of, me being a former journalist and kind of understanding the nuances. But just having somebody is going to get you a lot of media coverage.
That's so true. I think that's important. Now, you did use a little journalism speak there. Kicker. What's a kicker?
Oh, so kicker is we all watch the newscast. It
Yeah.
usually starts with something very depressing. Then we get to weather, we get to sports. And the kicker is the last story in the newscast where they try to make it happy. Forget that you watched all that mayhem and all the things going wrong in our world and our communities. So it's the feel-good piece at the end of the newscast. And a lot of times that's where education stories, and you can even, here's a tip already, you can present some of your stories as this might be a cute kicker for the newscast tonight. So after you're done talking politics and COVID and everything, get to a cute kicker with some kids or the marching band in this huge parade that they're hosting in your local community. So that's what a kicker is.
That's a really good tip. Yeah, and we're going to talk a little bit about that as well here in just a few more minutes. But that's a really good example. And I think you touched on something incredibly important, which is for the school districts that do have professional communicators on staff. Really lucky here in Arcadia, you've got two. You're more likely to get that positive news coverage. So if you're a district out there and you're looking at what can I do, and you just don't have the resources, the time or energy, or professional communicators on staff, maybe a position you want to consider opening up, because it's more than just positive media coverage. It's the community engagement. There's so many other pieces of the puzzle that are missing when you don't have someone dedicated to just that role.
I'll give you one example from a few years ago where we got a great story just because they knew we had staff here and that we can handle it. So several years ago, heat wave, first day of school, first week of schools for everyone, and it was hot, first day back for everybody. So ABC7 was looking to do a story about how schools are dealing with the heat as we welcome back the little ones and what we were doing. And they called us because they knew we would answer. Amber and I would answer. We worked with them before, and so we arranged it quick, got them to a school site, and they did this great story about our maintenance is out there cleaning out air filters, doing all this prep work. Our nutrition services team is bringing in all this extra water. Our staff's really helping out. So it turned out to be this great story showing our classified employees, who we love to highlight and showcase, doing all this extra work for our students and staff. And if we weren't here working here, we don't get that story because there's no relationship. There's nobody here to call, but we got it done. We got it done quick, and it turned out to be just a great story.
That's so true. And I'll back that up with one other story. I was talking to a PIO friend in a district down in San Diego County, and they had a local reporter that was going to run a story on the long lunch lines and how some kids are missing recess because the lines are so long to get through lunch. And she was just going to run this story. And she thought, you know what? I have a PIO person I'll reach out to, see if I can get a district to comment on this. She reached out, and the PIO was able to kind of flip the script just a little bit and say, you know what? We do have long lines. And the reason is we don't have enough staff. So why don't you come on out? I'll invite you to visit the campus. I'll show you what the issues are, and we can talk through this, and you can help get the word out about how we need people to apply. And the next day, people were like calling in, hey, I'm a real estate agent. I have time in my day. What can I do? Hey, I'm a pilot. I'm retired. What can I do? So really cool. And you're right. And it goes back to the local media knowing they have someone they can reach out to.
Christine Peck, a phenomenal PIO.
Yes, indeed she is. Indeed she is.
And a former journalist.
At Poway Unified.
Yes.
Yeah, and a former journalist.
Yeah.
So now, Amber, you and I were talking about this too just the other day, and you had mentioned something really important, which is taking their calls.
Oh, absolutely. So like Ryan had mentioned earlier, just being available, whether it's a good story, a bad story, having them know that you're going to answer them and give comment and be prepared, it really goes a long way with establishing your credibility and their trust with you. So they know that you're willing to play ball in the bad times, but then they're more willing to reach out to you in the good times when they need just a shot or a background shot for something.
So true. And in that vein, just gave me another idea. Can we talk about something a little controversial?
Let's go.
What about off the record?
Off the record, I've been to several, this is a good topic actually, and there's several different philosophies, and that's why it's a little bit controversial, because some people will say, who I respect, they'll say never speak off the record.
Right.
You will never hear me say never speak off the record.
Okay.
Because there are times when you need to provide context and information in that setting of off the record. And there's stories that are very sensitive and delicate. And when somebody calls a media outlet with one side of the story, gets the reporter like, oh, wow, there's a lot to look into, that's just one side. And you can't always go on the record and give the entirety of the story. Or even sometimes it's just a off the record, here's some people you should talk to or who have more knowledge about this situation and can probably say more than I could or our organization should. You still represent a school board, a school district, so what you say on the record is very important. But reporters also appreciate background and off the record, so they have context, so they have all the information to do an accurate, fair, unbiased story. Really, journalists, there's a lot of good ones who want that at the core. So they, I wouldn't advise everyone to talk off the record if you don't know how to do it and if you don't trust them. But there's been situations in the past where I've talked to reporters I've never worked with before and said, can I talk to you off the record? Yeah. And there's a proper way to do it and how to have that conversation. And I've had reporters asked me if they could talk to me off the record. So what they're going to tell me stays between us. And it helps each other get to the truth or find the pathways to get there. So I've done it, but I'm also very comfortable doing it, being a journalist and having had difficult conversations with people during difficult stories. So the advice of never do it, I don't necessarily agree with, but you need to, if you're not comfortable with it, then maybe that's a case where you probably shouldn't do it. But the no comment and that sort of thing that kind of goes along those lines, you got to be careful with that, because if you don't speak off the record or you don't have a comment, sometimes the story looks and it goes away that's not really accurate and fair to all parties.
That's so true. And I've had journalists do that too. And a good journalist is going to respect that moment of privacy. And I've gone on background too, where I had a parent at a school board meeting once get really upset in public comment that the board wasn't responding to them. And it was a journalist that had just gotten assigned to the education beat. I didn't know this person. I've never really worked with him before. I knew they had gotten assigned. I reached out like, hey, let's have coffee. Let's get to know each other. But that hadn't happened yet. And so when they called and they were giving me the details of this person being really upset that the board doesn't respond, they're just sitting, kind of listening. I said, hey, can I go on background here a little bit? Can I give you a little context? And yeah, she really appreciated that. And I talked through the legalities of these aren't agendized items, right? The board can't legally respond to you and have a back and forth during moments of public comment. And it was eye-opening, and that helped the journalist to frame a story that ultimately didn't end up even being printed. And I hope that they went back to the concerned citizen and maybe communicated some of that information. I don't know if they did, but even going on background, with someone like that you don't know, you can take a little risk there, but you do have to be careful. If you are familiar with working with a journalist and you just know that maybe the relationship's shaky, or you're not sure, you can be totally confident that information will stay private, then like you were saying, that's a moment where you don't do that.
You bring up a good point though, because there's a lot of journalists who there used to be beats, like everyone. So there used to be an education reporter, courts reporter. They would, police and breaking news reporters. That's not so much the case anymore. So people covering education are not always familiar with education. If anyone's seen an education code book, it's thicker than most Bibles out there. It's huge. Yeah. And so understanding education is difficult. So sometimes it's just talking off the record and background explaining norms in education. Like, this may sound a little weird, but this is policy. For instance, the story you talked about with the long lines for the lunches and people upset, the other thing is what you explain to them is this is a state mandate that just came down with zero notice to our nutrition services. So let me explain this. Does this make sense? Are there long lines? Yes, come on in, we'll show you. but there was policy set 2 months ago. Nobody had time to get more equipment, more food, more staff.
Yeah.
So here, let me explain all this to you. Here's the education policy. Here's the new law that was passed 3 days ago that we're supposed to implement tomorrow, right?
Yeah.
So explaining things to them, but having somebody to do that, or knowing who to go to if it's an ed services deep dive question, like here's how to do that. So that's some of the background work that you help build relationships and get accurate information with reporters covering stories.
That's really good. So we've kind of talked through some of the high level things to look out for there. How do you go about successfully pitching a story? What are some tips, some strategies, some tactics around pitching a story? You kind of shared a really good tip already with, hey, this might be a really good kicker, right? Like, so what are some of the strategies and tactics to get media to pay attention to some of your local things?
One mistake I see a lot is, and I've been on the other end of this as a reporter, is when somebody calls or sends a press release in an email and says, this is the greatest story. Your viewers are going to love it. Let me tell you how awesome this story is. If you don't do it, you don't know stories. So,
but the kids raised $10,000.
Exactly. But it'd be like you or I walking into a superintendent's office or the director of curriculum and saying, you have to use this textbook. It's the greatest textbook. And they're looking at you like, you don't really do textbooks. I know textbooks.
Yeah.
I'll make that decision.
Let me handle that.
So it's like, never tell a reporter, like, this is a great story, you got to do it, because they're the journalists, they have the experience, and whatever media outlet it is, it may not be something that they cover a lot or a great story for them.
True.
But it's a little offensive when you tell somebody that does, like, let me tell you how to host this segment. Let me tell you what to do, which I did before we went on air. In fact. No, but so let them decide, and there may be different formats. It may be for their website, a good platform. ABC7 has a great in the community segment, so it may not be ideal for one way, but never say, like, this is it. Here's a great story, you got to cover this, because it's like, that's a little off-putting. The other thing is, don't, just as a journalist, doesn't bury the lead.
Right.
Don't bury the lead in your press release.
Okay.
So if you said, we raised $10,000 for this, or if it's $1 million, changing lives, don't put that in the last sentence. Put that up top. What is the most important thing? They're going to look, journalists, a lot of the times, they're humans like us, so they're going to look at it, read the headline of the press release, get into a paragraph, and if it's not interesting, they're going to go read their 80 other press releases they just got that morning, because everyone's trying to get their story done. So don't bury the lead. With us, when we send press releases, we always include a photo. We do the press release in a PDF, but we always include the text in the body of the email.
Take one step out.
Exactly. So, and then we include quotes with it, so they don't have to go out and, can I get a quote from your superintendent? Already have that done. Your objective is, when sending out the old school press release, it still works, but it needs to be good. Make it as easy as possible for them, so they can take it and almost copy, paste, print. Even though we were talking, you mentioned national media, ABC7's big media, but there's a lot of local papers, smaller weeklies and the things that
they need content.
Exactly. They need content, and if you're a good writer, they trust you over the years. Amber's a fantastic writer, so if she writes a press release, inserts it, oftentimes they'll just take it, they know her writing's amazing, and put it right in the paper. Serves them well, like you said, they have content, serves us well, that's the story we want out there, but making it as simple as possible for them so they don't have to find the PDF, they don't have to convert it. So if a reporter or an assignment editor is looking at it on their phone, they don't need to have the PDF there. So easy as possible, complete as possible, is my advice.
Hey there, we hope you're enjoying this conversation on positive media coverage. Be sure to stick around for part 2, because we are going to keep this conversation rolling. We'll see you there.